Hi, Hamish Conway here, and welcome to TACOS Tuesday, and this is episode 35. And for this episode, because it's Easter and Seb and I are taking a well-needed break, we'll say, what we're doing is I was looking back over the previous podcasts, and there was three that really stood out to me that have been quite popular, and I just thought what I'd do is would take some pieces from each of those three. And one of them is from the 9 Mistakes episode, where we dive into the common mistakes that we see that you want to be avoiding. Another one was around smarter objectives and just how to be thinking around what if you get the right objectives, you can have the right strategy to build that, and then you'll know what success looks like. And then 9 common questions that we are often getting asked. So this here is absolutely a great refresher for you. So tune in as you have some Easter eggs and enjoy this episode of TACOS Tuesday. All the best. Amazon compared to Google and Meta. So what are the key differences here? Because we get this question a bit, well, how's Amazon different to Google ads or advertising we do on Meta? What would you say to that?
Yeah, I think the main key ones, I'll compare it first, like Amazon and Google. When you go to Google, I know for me personally as well, you go to Google for lots of reasons. You don't go to Google primarily to shop. You go to, sort out your 8-year-old's math question that you should know but you don't know. But things like that you go through to Google. But Amazon is a marketplace and it's about purchasing products. So when people are on Amazon, the intent is far higher than what you would see on Google. The intent is much lower on Google in the sense that, obviously, like I said, people, there's lots of different various reasons that people are there. But when people go to Amazon, they're there to purchase something. You don't go to Amazon trying to find out information, about anything or whatnot, unless you're researching, can I get the cheapest price? And then with Facebook ads, again, Facebook ads is a completely different type of marketing. It is it's an interruption type marketing where it's getting in your face. You're connecting with friends, family, whatever, and then you're getting served ads. So you're not in the that purchase driven intent sort of mode when you're on Facebook and Google. Whereas Amazon, you are. Everyone knows what Amazon is. They know the platform and the main differences. So that's the main differences, and it's why the conversion rates on Amazon are really high.
Mm-hmm. And there is also the factor of you advertise to build up organic ranking and get more free sales, which is, so the better you're advertising, the better your organic will be as well, and the better the ranking, and you kind of lock that in. Whereas with Meta and Google, it's more just whatever's happening at that time on your site.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of like what we mentioned before with the ROAS, so, that's why ROAS for Facebook and Google is super important, because you're just measuring the efficiency of the ads. Whereas on Amazon, you have that organic piece, like you just mentioned.
Yeah. And people's mouse is hovering over the add to cart button. Number one, what's the first mistake you see smart brands making with Amazon ads?
Yeah, so the first one that I probably see that has the biggest opportunity is the catalog gaps within different brands' catalogs from an advertising point of view. What I mean by that is that they're not advertising some of their better sellers. And so, advertising, like I've said in the past, advertising enhances the good and it enhances the bad. So if there's stuff that's converting really well, advertising is going to help with that, and it's going to really expand that and grow it. And inverse of that, if your product listings and your products are not great and the offering's not great, advertising is just going to make that worse.
How do companies know if they've got a catalog gap? What are they looking for?
Yeah, so I mean, it's really just about taking an audit of your account and having a look and seeing, are all of your products represented in advertising campaigns? And not just are they represented, because you can have very little spend on a lot of them, but are they represented properly? According to their revenue and how much they make up of the portfolio, because not all products deserve the same amount of ad spend. The products that sell better, will warrant having a higher percentage of your budget.
Yeah, exactly. And that conversion rate factor, right? So you could be looking in at your data and going, right, this has got a high conversion rate, but it's not getting a lot of traffic. It's getting, because it's only organic. That could be a good product there to be putting some ad spend to, would be another way of looking at that. And
Yep.
this kind of then flows into the second easy mistake, number two, that we see around poor structure. So talk to me a bit more about that mistake brands are making.
Yeah, so when setting up your advertising, obviously all of your products have different objectives. Not all products are created equal. Not all products are created equal from a margin point of view. So it doesn't make sense to group your products, all together. One of the biggest mistakes we see people make is they'll throw all of their products into a single campaign, or a big chunk of their products, and all of those products have varying different selling prices or average order value, and their objectives are very different. So you have no control over the objectives of what you want to try and achieve when you're doing that, when you're grouping them together. So that poor structure doesn't allow you to, to push your high margin products, and to, pull back on some stuff that's, maybe lower margin, etc. You lose all of that control when you don't set up your structure right.
Yeah, exactly. And even, if you've got multiple brands that in your portfolio, just putting all the brands under one campaign is, a brand under a campaign is not going to work. There's different search terms, etc. And I think we'll do another call on the different ad types and when to use them, and how that all works. So really that poor structure, though, it means people can't pinpoint what's working, what's not, and what products are going well, and which ones aren't. And so it's just really inefficient, really ineffective way of advertising. Okay, so that's number two. Number three, tell us about that.
Or what's number three? I don't have the notes in front of me.
Number three, I thought you had in front of you. Not investing in the channel and leaving sales on the table.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So we've seen this a lot with, some of the clients that we manage, and the reason that this one is a major mistake is, and I've said this before, but it's the long term implications of not investing in the channel. So we find that people will have, by all accounts, all metrics that we're looking at are pointing to a positive sign and positive growth. But they might have strict, monthly budgets and things like that. They don't have dynamic budgets that allow them to, to move with the changes in the marketplace. And because of that, they get left behind. It's kind of that story about, like, how big brands are, not very versatile and not dynamic and can't move quickly, and the smaller brands are, and because they can move quickly, they can, they can acquire market share and stuff much quicker. And so it's a little bit about that story, where it's like, if it's working, all of the key indicators indicate that the advertising and that the platform is working as a whole. Investing in it just makes a lot of sense, particularly to protect you in the long term.
That's the interesting thing about Amazon, is challenger brands really can have almost an advantage in that nimbleness there and ability to adapt. I was talking to a friend who selling in the US, and coming up into, it was a really busy time. This is actually around the pandemic, and he was doing like pop filter sort of things. And what happened there is his ads agency was going, the metrics are good, you've got to spend more. And he was a bit nervous about this, but then it actually ramped up. He was spending $3,000 a day, $90,000 a month in ad spend. That if you had said to him, hey, have you got a $90,000 budget to spend, he would have said, God, no. But the way the metrics were going, and then the way the sales went, it was absolutely the right call. And it's, I guess sometimes we kind of get frustrated because we know that that's what can happen. And then there's brands going, no, this is the only budget. Even though sales are growing and the metrics are pointing in the right direction, then that kind of leads us to having to do things like day parting to try and, so you don't go dark later in the month. But you just see sales being left on the table, that the competition is going and picking up. And whereas, and this is sometimes that fixed mentality around, no, this is all we've got for the month, isn't actually accurate when it comes to really winning on Amazon. And so kind of linked to that then is mistake number 4, which is spend allocation, so tell me more about that and how people make that mistake across the different ad types.
Yeah, so this kind of goes for multiple levels. You've kind of got spend allocation at the product level. We sort of touched on that, with the catalog gaps part. But there's also spend allocation, at different levels. So within advertising, there's obviously a lot of different things. You have campaigns, you also have match types, you have keywords, et cetera, and it sort of builds down. And you also have, advertising on unbranded terms, which are terms that are not, not your brand. And then you have branded, which is, protecting your brand, and things like that. So the spend allocations, sometimes we see they're out of whack. And examples could be, a brand spending way too much on brand defense, but not going and acquiring new customers. So all it's doing is just protecting its brand, but it's not really growing and acquiring market share. Other examples could be, around it's utilizing, some of the different advertising types. So there's sponsored products, there's sponsored brand, there's sponsored display, but it might be, spending 95% or 100% of its spend on sponsored products. And we've seen accounts like this, that are doing this, but it's not spending it on the other ones. And depending on, your brand and things like that, your percentages do change, but there is kind of a bit of a guide in regards to how much you should have allocated within those different levels, right? So, product levels, campaign levels, match type levels, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm. And that's really getting into that granular view of what is working and what is not. And because there are times when, you put your money, you want to invest your money, and there's the bottom of the funnel, really sponsored product search there that's going to give you the biggest return. And so it's easy to also just hang out there because you can see that working but then you can kind of run out of audience if you're not doing more at the middle of the funnel or the top of the funnel with sponsored display and sponsor brand as well. So that's an interesting one there that then can lead to just missed opportunity mostly, isn't it? So
yeah.
What about, well, actually, I guess kind of linked to that is wasted ad spend. I know that we weren't intending on covering off on this here as a mistake, but there are a lot of people who are wasting their ad spend as well. Can you just talk to that in terms of what does that even mean and how would that come about?
Yeah, so we define wasted ad spend as anything that gets a click, because that's what we pay for. Every time someone clicks on an ad, we pay for that click. So we define wasted ad spend as anything that gets a click that doesn't get an order. Now, you'll never have an account that has no wasted ad spend. There will always be a percentage, but there is an acceptable percentage that it should sit at. And again, depending on your brand and your brand's visibility and the niche you're in, like the competitiveness of the niche, those percentages vary. But we've done a lot of audits for brands over the years, and so we have a pretty good gauge on like when we know an account is got way too much as a percentage. We've seen brands as high as 70% of all of their spend going to, to terms that don't convert for them or advertising types that don't convert. So, clearly, way too high. So, yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. And then, so that's, again, just getting granular and knowing how to avoid that. Number 5, we've got underutilizing ad types, and we may have touched on that a little bit before, but anything else to add to that, Seb?
Yeah, so once you've kind of got your structure right, what we've talked about and your catalog gaps, utilizing your different advertising types comes into play when, like Hamish said, you've maximized the bottom of the funnel, the sponsored products, but you need to start building up, more customers, more new to brand customers. And so using the other advertising types will help you do that. Sponsored brand, sponsored display, sponsored brand particularly is a great awareness type one. Now, I suppose as brand owners, people are very wary of the term awareness because it's like it comes normally with a high price tag and you're like, I can't, how do you justify the results and whatnot? But there are ways to measure that impact, that awareness impact on your advertising. And I think Amazon, out of a lot of the different platforms that are out there, does a really good job of showcasing like and showing you how you can measure that and see how it goes. And so this is kind of tied a little bit to the type of product that you sell. If you're selling, I've used the example of shoes before, but, if you're selling, a very specific type of running shoe, a barefoot shoe or something like that, people may be starting their journey at the term running shoe. And so using your awareness, because they might not even be aware of that type of product. And so making them aware of it by using a headline ad is a really strong play, particularly when there's like a crossover. It's relevant, but it's not hyper relevant. And so, using headline ads and things like that bring awareness to that. And it's also really good for brands that have like big catalogs, where you want to advertise, you might have a whole range, and you want to bring them to your store, and things like that as well. So yeah, there's lots and lots of opportunities within there, and they do make sense for a lot of very different brands with really big ranges, where they want to send them to a store. Again, once you got them to the store, there's no ads on the store. They are your customer. Like it's like having them on your website when they're at your store. They're going to just be looking at your products, and whatnot. So yeah, lots of use cases for why they're important, and a lot of the time they're underutilized. That when we do audits for clients.
Yeah, no, it is. I think people actually are surprised by how many options there are in terms of ads, and I think that'll, next episode we'll cover that off, because there's like 55 different ad types that you can be advertising on. So we'll cover that off next time. Now, what about, so number 6 here is no brand protection. Explain what that means and why that's a mistake.
Yeah, so no brand protection basically means someone is searching for your brand, and you have a lot of competitors that are doing what they call conquest campaigns, where they're coming after your brand and they're advertising their products on your branded search or on your product detail page. Amazon's unique in this sense. Basically, any other platform that I'm aware of, anyway, they don't allow you to do this. If you're searching for Nike shoes, it'll only show you, Nike shoes, but not Amazon. Amazon allows you to, to advertise on your competitors and whatnot. And there's certain brands that there is a lot of crossover. Like people can understand or can confuse two brands because they look similar or whatnot. And an example could be like a Sunkist and a Fanta. They're both orange. They both look the same. A lot of the time people will be like, oh, they're the same brand, but they're not really the same brand. So understanding that and understanding your brand and understanding that there can be other brands that are similar to yours will help you understand how much you need to invest in your brand defense. Now, you should always have some level of brand defense. You can go too far and overinvest in it, but investing in your brand defense generally is going to be really cheap. I mean, not generally, it's always really cheap. So your advertising metrics will look really good. The only issue you've got to be careful of is just making sure you're not cannibalizing your sales. And I've talked about that in a separate episode, in the first episode that we launched, actually. But just making sure you're not cannibalizing your sales. But protecting your brand, is really normally, an easy win and worth doing.
But what are you noticing about brands when it comes to them actually knowing what they want or what their objectives are or what they should be? Like, what are you noticing when you're talking to brands?
Yeah, so a lot of the time when we're talking to brands, they're not clear on what their goals and objectives are, and I think a big chunk of it's because they haven't really done the work to work out, where each of their products fit when it comes to Amazon specifically. And that's surprising. Some of these brands that we work with, they're really big brands, and you would expect them to have, to sort of know where things are going, and what their objectives should be. But a lot of them don't. And a lot of them will have like account level objectives. And today we want to talk a little bit about why we think account levels are the wrong way to look at it and what the right way is.
Okay. What do you think it is that brands, because what is it that has it that brands don't fully understand what's happening? Do they think it looks simple on the outside, so we'll just treat it the same as Google and Meta, or what are you noticing? Like, what do you think it is about it?
Yeah, I think in the beginning it's because Amazon is a small part of their overall business, and so it just doesn't get the attention that it deserves. And then as it grows, they start to realize, like, oh no, this is becoming a much bigger part of our business. In some cases, it's the fastest growing channel for a lot of brands, not the biggest, but the fastest growing. And so I think because of that, it's managed, with team members that are doing a whole bunch of other things, and just not getting the attention and the strategy that it needs.
Yeah, and there's probably also a factor where they just don't actually know what good looks like. If all they've seen is just their account, then they don't know what good looks like, or they're just lacking some context. Do you think that would also be relevant?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So a lot of brands will come to us and say, what should my objectives be? Should they be this? Should they be that? And so, and it's because Amazon is a bit unique in its sense. They're used to looking at Facebook ads or Google ads and things like that, and Amazon has this whole organic piece to it that Facebook doesn't have, for example. And because of that, the metrics we use to measure things are different than what we would on something like Facebook and whatnot. So yeah, because of that reason, I think they get a little bit lost in okay, well, what is good then? Because I can't use Facebook as a benchmark or my Google as a benchmark.
Yeah, and that's I know before we were kind of coining the phrase like it's a lazy objective or lazy way to look at the objectives for Amazon ads. But I guess why is an account level objective a problem anyway? What's wrong?
Yeah, so
what's the problem?
Yeah, so the main reason that account level objective is a problem is because every product in a catalog is very different. For example, you might have a $200 product and a $10 product. Those have very, very different objectives, particularly when you're talking about advertising, because you can only afford to pay so much for your clicks on a $10, $20 product versus a $200 product has a lot more ability there. So by having account level objectives, you are applying the same rules across all of your products that should have very different objectives. The other reason that it's not good is it's confusing on when you're deciding to try and grow the account where you should focus your time and energy.
Right. Yeah, that's an important one. It's like, when you do want to move the needle, you just don't know what levers to pull because it's too high level. So how do brands actually go about setting objectives for Amazon ads in the right way? What do they need to take into account?
Yeah, so the first thing you need to do is what you need to set up your product level objectives is you need your price, your what you're paying Amazon from your fees point of view, and your cost of goods. Now, depending on if you're a seller or a vendor, these will vary differently, of course. But once you have that, you should be able to work out your contribution margin, and that will give you a good indication of of what your break-even ACOS should be. Now, your break-even ACOS is your contribution margin divided by your sales price. So once you have your contribution margin, you should be able to work out what your break-even ACOS is. And just for anyone that's listening that doesn't know what ACOS is just your advertising cost of sale. So it's the efficiency of your advertising.
Yeah.
So once you have your break-even ACOS, then you should be able to work out your current ACOS. And then basically the difference is between your current ACOS, so where you currently sit, and where your break-even is the opportunity for you to seize. But that first part is about setting up, what my objectives should be. So once you've got that basic information, then it's about like getting clear on what your objectives are. You needed that information first before you could set up your objectives. So now that you've got that, you can go, okay, what would I be willing to do to grow my brand? Sometimes you'd be like, okay, I'm willing to increase my ACOS, which is increasing your ad spend on some of these products because I have good margin on those. And you might experience where you actually make less profit. You will make less profit per unit in general, but you'll make overall more profit because you'll just be moving more units. So kind of once you have that product level data, you can then decide on, okay, I'm willing to spend more on these product ranges because they have the margin to support it. And then you want to come up with a target ACOS that's affordable for your product. So that's where you work out if your bids are aligned with your objective.
Yeah. Okay. And because like all brands want to make grow sales and grow sales profitably, right? That's the overall target. And then the fourth question that people will ask is, well, what is a good ROAS for Amazon ads?
Yeah, and we talked a little bit about this and how we think ROAS isn't really the best metric to use. So, we know why a lot of people use it. It's comparable to Meta, it's comparable to Google Ads, but ROAS, and the reason that we don't use it is because most of the time what we find when we're auditing clients' accounts is that it's overinflated. It's overinflated in the sense that most people aren't looking at their true ROAS. They're looking at a ROAS that includes all these branded searches and all this brand equity that really doesn't paint the full picture for them. So ROAS is part of the conversation for sure, but it's not the most important metric. There's a reason that we called our episode Tacos Tuesday, and that's because that's one of the metrics we think is that stacks up the best.
So what doesn't it measure? What doesn't ROAS measure? Just to elaborate a bit more on that.
Yeah, so it doesn't measure the organic sales that you're going to receive on the platform. So what's different about Amazon ads versus, or Amazon in general versus Google and Meta, is that there is an organic and a paid side, and they work intertwined together. And so, you can, as long as you have a good offering, a good product, you can push on your advertising and you can see the benefit of your organic listing move further and higher up in on the page and get more visibility. And so because of that relationship, we use that metric of TACOS, which is your total advertising cost of sale, because we can see that relationship between advertising and that. ROAS doesn't take that into consideration. So you can make decisions around ROAS where you're like, okay, my ROAS is too low. I'm going to pause, different campaigns or whatever and make decisions around it. But really, you're not looking at that whole picture.
Yeah. So if you were to go, say someone said, no, ROAS is the key metric. What are the things that you could do to have a great ROAS and go, hey, well, look, we've taken your ROAS from 6 to 10. And they could think that's great, but actually you've made decisions that aren't actually helping them really grow overall sales or grow market share and ranking. What are some of the things you would do?
Yeah, so
Not that we do this, by the way.
No,
just to be clear, but just want to kind of ask that, because this is what some people could do, right? To just go, hey, well, look how good we are. We've got your ROAS up to this level, but it's actually done more harm than good. So what would you do to boost the ROAS?
Yeah, and I think, kind of what on your point there, ROAS doesn't measure things that are important to a business, which include market share, and margin and things like that. And so that's, another reason why it misses a lot of the points there. But, if let's say that, for example, I was running the advertising for Lego, which I am not, but let's say I was, it would be very easy to get a strong ROAS by advertising on any term that someone was searching for on Amazon that was the term Lego or included the term Lego in the search term. And that's because when someone's searching Lego, they're looking in general for the Lego brand. And so if you did do that, you'd be able to overinflate your ROAS numbers. You'd be able to what we call cannibalize your organic sales. So they were probably going to order a specific product anyway. You served up an ad, and then they happen to click on the ad and make a purchase. And so then you'd cannibalize your organic sale into a paid sale, albeit a very profitable advertising sale, but it still was just going to be a sale you would have got in any case.
So you just double down on all the branded search. And then I guess what's missing, so if we'd use a dog food topper example where there's, say, more competition, because Lego is quite specific. Yes, there's other brick things, but let's say dog food where there's maybe a dozen key brands. And so you could really double down on your branded search there. But what you're missing out on is all those category search terms that are really going to get you new to brand customers, or have those people that are searching for dog food toppers open to any brand. You're going to miss out on all of those opportunities. Is that correct?
Yeah. Like some of the niches, those unbranded terms are, have significant amount of search volume. So there's a lot of people that are brand agnostic. They're not tied to any one given brand. And if you're not advertising on those terms and you're only focused on ROAS, and you have unrealistic ROAS targets, you miss out on that market completely. That's why focusing only on ROAS is not going to be helpful.
All right. So here's another question. If I have a low budget, where should I focus that budget?
Yeah, this is a big one, and one we get a lot. A lot of the time, brands we work with,
often it's fixed budgets.
And that's exactly, some of the conversations we've had. Like, there's a marketing budget, and it's only so much to go around, and it's fixed over a 12-month period or whatever. So there's these scenarios that pop up. So there's a few ways to tackle budgets. The first is, what I would say is, the best way to get the best bang for your buck is to focus on your best sellers. And some people are like, oh, but shouldn't I get more visibility to my the products that are, that are not selling as well? And the answer is no, you should focus on the best sellers. And the reason is because the market's already telling you that that product is working. All advertising does is make the good really good, and if you try and advertise something that's bad, it'll make it worse. And so by advertising the stuff that's working, you're really going to enhance and improve those results. If from that point you can get more budget, then kind of after that you can start focusing on those product ranges that are in there, that are not your best sellers. So that's one way to approach it. The other way is we sort of spoke about this before, is about grouping your products into variations. So you might not have enough budget for your whole catalog, but maybe all of your products are standalone listings, and some of them might make sense to group up as variation families. And what we mean by that is, let's say you're selling a drink, or a 600 ml drink, and you have a 2-pack of that drink, or you have different mils of it. So you have like a 600 ml and an 800 ml and a 1200 ml or 1.25 liter or whatever. You could group your products, but they're the same flavor, for example. You could group your products together so that when you're advertising on one of those variations, someone ends up landing on the product detail page, but they see the other 2 products as part of landing on your product detail page. That helps you maximize your budget by advertising on, still as many of the products as you can in your catalog, but still getting visibility on the entire catalog.
And look, and if you're listening to this here and going, crikey, I don't know if I've got catalog gaps, wasted spend, poor structure, am I missing some advertising types, then I would encourage you to connect with us. Go to gosellglobal.com. We've got a advertising audit spotlight that we do that goes into a lot of detail, and if you go to there and click on advertising, and we've got a video there on what we actually cover off there. So have a look at that. It's a really valuable exercise, and Seb goes through all of that for you, just to really help you just get way better results. And particularly if you're in Australia, like, there's a massive opportunity there because people are generally doing this poorly. So there's a lot of low-hanging fruit, and so we can help you with that. With the USA, it's obviously a lot more competitive, and so you've got to be very smart with how you spend your dollars in the States, and we've got a lot of accounts there, and Canada, so we can help you with that as well. So look forward to seeing you on the next episode, Seb, and thank you very much for listening, and have a great rest of your day. All the best.